Hello everyone and welcome back to Littwin English literature videos. And if you're watching my channel for the first time, do like, share and subscribe to the channel. Today we're going to study about fiction and major works and writers of fiction. So from this video series, it's going to be a series on major fiction writers of the beginning from the 18th through the 19th and the 20th centuries. So, what do you mean by the word fiction? The word fiction means to form. It's derived from the Latin word fictus, which means to form something. Okay? And you can call it as fiction. It's also defined as any imaginative recreation of life in prose narrative form. I hope you got it, friends. Fiction is any imaginative recreation of prose narrative form. And all the fiction is, you can say all works of fiction relates to events that never really happened. Those are all works of imagination from the writers. It existed or arose from the writers' minds. Most of the characters that are present in fiction never really existed, and they were created by the writer as part of their work or imagination. Okay, and you can say that for example, the novel is a prominent form of fiction, and it is also started from the early 17th century. Okay, now let's study about some very famous writers of fiction. Now, what do you think? Why do you think fiction rose, and when did fiction's writing become popular? This is the major reason for the rise of fiction or novels was in the 18th century England, and this was due to the rise of the middle class. The middle class in this century, they started flourishing under the patronage of the upper classes. There were many classes in the society during that time in London or England. For example, the upper classes, the middle classes, and there were also the lower classes, or you can say the working classes, the classes who served the privileged sections of the society that existed in London. And there was also this was you can see the rise of tremendous growth of trade and commerce. Okay, and there was also a merchant class that began to rise in England during this time of the 18th century. As a result of which, more people began to read newspapers and magazines. This also showed the affluence or a richness in their lifestyle. Newspapers began to attract the readers of all the classes of the society, and as a result of which, so many writers began to write and work as journalists, and they started writing in the columns of very prestigious newspapers and magazines. And you can also see in the 18th century, the role of women also began to change, as a result of which many women especially began to participate in administration, politics, and also they began to stress on the importance of equality with men. They also started feeling the right of equality, and they also wanted to work along with men and try to be on par as how men also lived and flourished. Women also started to write in famous magazines and newspapers. And today I'm going to introduce you to a famous writer who lived during this 18th century, many of the works were published during this time, the 18th century. And one such writer is Daniel Defoe. Daniel Defoe is a famous writer, and I'm sure most of you know the story of Robinson Crusoe. a man who got deserted on an island all alone, away due to a shipwreck. This writer, Daniel Defoe, created the character of Robinson Crusoe, and this work was published in 1719. This work of Daniel Defoe, it paved the way for the English novel. Okay. Now let's look into Daniel Defoe's works, other works of Daniel Defoe. Defoe's The Shortest Way, another work is The Shortest Way with Dissenters, reduced to absurdity and also the rabid intolerance prevalent in his time. Although an ardent dissenter himself, he pretended to advocate an off with their heads policy toward all those who dared to dissent with the tenets of the Church of England. Okay, there was some protesting going on with the Church of England during that time, and some of them were dissenters. And Daniel Defoe was one such writer who was also a dissenter himself. The pillory sentence, which was meant to degrade him publicly, turned to triumph when, instead of the expected jeering, a group of his friends sang a satiric song Defoe had composed for the occasion and pelted him with flowers rather than rocks and rotten eggs. And another work which he wrote, which gave him fame, was a pamphlet known as The Poor Man's Plea. This was published in the year 1698, which he wrote in the year 1698. This illustrates his fondness for walking on controversial issues. The Poor Man's Plea. And then the next work was King William III, was Defoe's one real hero. The True Englishman was a satirical poem published in 1701 by Daniel Defoe defending the King of England, Williams. And he also wrote another pamphlet named History of the Union. Okay, in the spring of 1715, he published an autobiographical narrative, An Appeal to Honor and Justice, indicated as a vindication of political conduct. Robinson Crusoe is based, and most of the works written by Robinson Crusoe were, the famous work Robinson Crusoe is based on the adventures. It's an adventurous novel. A Scot whose name is Alexander Selkirk, a Scottish sailor who had lived alone on the island of Juan Fernandez for over 4 years until he was rescued by Captain Woods George in 1709. He made use of Richard Hakluyt's Voyages, William Dampier's New Voyage Round the World. Okay, and then we can say that in 1704, he established the Review, an early London newspaper which he ran almost single-handedly for 9 years. After producing gazettes and political pamphlets by the score, Defoe turned from journalism to the writing of novels and fictitious history, such as Robinson. It was later that he wrote Robinson Crusoe and a Journal of the Plague Year. So this much is known about the famous writer Daniel Defoe. And for more such videos, do like, subscribe to Littwin English Literature videos. Thank you.